start dengan doa.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma aftah alaina hikmatika wa syur alaina min khaza'ini rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Rabbana shrah lana sadrana wa yassir lana umurana wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawlana. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Okay, if you remember last week teacher dah bagi assignment, is that right? On exchange rates, teacher letak dekat WhatsApp groups. You all sempat buat tak? Jawapan jujur, sempat? Tak sempat?
Sempat tapi tak faham teacher.
Sempat tak faham. Okay, yang lain senyap tu? Does it mean tak sempat?
Sama macam Husna teacher.
Okay then. You have to remember that we still have to do a makeup test, is that right? So you are lucky enough, this is not your makeup test, but this will be like similar to your exam, even though it's not 100% as your exam paper 2 format. Okay, so and we try to do as much as possible this exercise. If we don't have time, then we're going to continue next class. So let's move on into, okay, the first thing we need to understand the passage. Haziq, could you please read?
In iron ore, Australian economy feels the effect of falling iron ore price. Iron ore is Australia's largest export, and the double effect of slowing growth in China and higher levels of production in Australia had driven the price of iron ore lower. In addition, the Australian dollar has experienced a 10% depreciation against the US dollar. These two factors combined have caused a dramatic worsening in the current account. Australian mining companies are losing significant revenue from falling commodity prices, and this is further worsened by the rapidly depreciating currency. The Australian dollar traded at $0.7375 US dollar on Wednesday, nearly a 6-year low. Australia recorded a monthly balance of trade deficit of $2.61 billion US dollar in May 2015, compared with a deficit of Australian dollar 1.61 billion a year earlier. The increasing deficit in Australia's balance of trade is an indicator of potential declines in growth and employment, according to a foreign currency expert. The price of iron ore has fallen more than 67% between February 2013 and July 2015. In Australia, falling iron ore prices create downward pressure on economic growth. Australia's real gross domestic product grew 2% in 2015, down from 2.5% in 2014. Some economists noted that falling commodity prices reduced Australia's export revenues by more than 2% of GDP in 2015. An expanding group of Australian-based economists argue that the central bank should further cut interest rates because of global economic uncertainty, falling commodity prices, weak consumer demand, and persistent weakness in non-mining sectors, such as tourism and educational export. Australia has been a popular destination for tourists and attracts many international students.
Okay, thank you. So let's go again, so look at the whole places again, and this is where we try to highlight the keywords or key points of our database one. The first we're talking about, yes, a country of Australia, and we're talking about iron ore. So we have to be able to identify if iron ore is a primary commodities. Okay. And then it's state on export. So we have export, primary commodities of Australia. Then we have talking about slowing down of China. So we do have, bear in mind, because we're talking about export. So it does tell us that most of the export is being sold to China. So China is trading partner, and we do have slowing down growth. So take note that iron ore is basically for development, construction. So all in over there. Then we do have has and a higher level of production of Australia. So this is demand supply of iron ore. Higher productions indicating our supply shift to the. Anyone would like to continue? Supply shift to the right or to the left? Yeah, in the end teacher tak dengar. Okay, so to the right, to the left.
The supply have shift to the right, teacher. Right.
Yes, to the right. Okay, and we have a depreciation of the US dollar. Okay, so in one paragraph, you have multiple key points. And we could have more than one diagrams that we could have. The first one will be on in terms of iron ore is a diagrams, right? So talking about export. So we're talking export economic growth. So means that we could have ADAS diagram. So should be able to draw the ADAS diagrams where it shows that export has dropped. Okay. So export drops, what happened to our AD? Naik, turun?
Turun.
Turun. So we have an AD drop. Okay, over there. Then we do have another one in terms of demand and supply of iron ore, where it says that's overproduction. So we could have a supply curve over here. Okay. Then the third diagram will be on depreciation. So this is a diagram of exchange rates. So in one paragraph, we have everything in here. Okay. So when you have the exams later on, regardless of semester exams or IB exams, make sure keynotes in terms of this one may influence what diagram, draw roughly the diagrams, and over in terms of productions, what kind of diagram over here. Then talking about depreciations and as well as depreciations. So depreciation in a currency indicates that what happened. This is where you have to relate to what happened to export prices, what happened to the import prices. Okay. And then, okay, another thing, next, what happened to the export and import prices? You have to relate to the whole data response is about iron ore. So what happened to the export prices of export prices of iron ore? And then, what does it means to the total revenue? Okay. So a lot of things in paragraph 1. Let's move on to paragraph 2. Okay, Australian mining companies are losing significant revenues from falling commodity prices. So again, so talking about price has dropped, reasons is depreciation. So export, okay. Why is it dia punya export revenue dia drop? Price dia turun, is it right? Okay. What kind of other things that we can relate to that lead to a lower revenue? Kita boleh pakai konsep apa? Yang price turun, in the end revenue pun turun. Benda apa tu?
Elastic demand, teacher.
Yes, PED, price of demand. Yeah. So is a high or low elasticity?
High.
Husna kata high. Betul ke? Yang lain setuju?
High elasticity. Saya
Yang lain
yakin.
setuju ke? High. Afika setuju? Dia kata high. Afika setuju ke?
Setuju.
Setuju, okay. High elasticity tu elastic ke inelastic?
Elastic.
Elastic. Iron ore primary commodity sepatutnya elastic ke inelastic? Inelastic. So sebenarnya salah. Dia bukan high. Dia adalah low elasticity. Always bear in mind, any primary commodity, agricultural product, semua tu come from the nature, mother earth, natural resources, semua tu adalah low elasticity or inelastic. Okay, so that's why you can explain that for the inelastics, when the P goes down, total revenue also goes down. Dia sama nature dia. Okay, so that explains why when the price of the Australians export prices drops, iron ore price of iron ore, which is their export has dropped, their total revenue drops as well. Why is it we have to do this? You might be able to use the elasticity if you have it in your AC form, would be like 8 marks or 15 marks. So yang tu yang kita akan pakai nanti. Okay, then we're talking about it getting worse by rapidly depreciating. So rapidly depreciating, what does it mean? In a simple way.
Currency
Turun
value
dengan
falls.
cepat gitu.
Yes, turun dengan cepat. So what happened? What does it mean by turun dengan cepat? So what will happen to the producers?
Cannot react fast enough.
Yes, cannot react fast enough, and not simply because their income drops so fast at a short period, at a short notice, kan? Okay. Then the Australian dollar traded at at as 0.7375 on Wednesday and nearly 6-year low. Okay. So you have to bear in mind in the data response, we want to have a questions that you have to make a reference and you'll be heavily penalized kalau you tak buat. So you have to take notes this figure, right? You have to take notes all the important ones because you kena gunakan infer or do make a reference. This information come from what paragraph in your sentence. Okay, so we do have, and if you have a question on exchange rates, then you need to come to be able to write this figure. Okay, Australians recorded a monthly balance sheet deficit. Okay, this is now balance of payment. So paragraph ni sikit tapi banyak Maria. So we do have a balance of deficits in 2015. Compare with a deficit of 1.6. So the deficit is getting bigger. What can we tell? The contributor of a higher deficit adalah kenapa defisit dia makin besar?
Because of low
Itu. Because export revenue dia tu.
Yes, because export revenue decrease. Haziq cakap pasal apa tadi Haziq?
low export revenue juga.
Yeah, okay. Low export revenue. Okay, thank you. So the increasing deficit in Australian balance of trade is indicator of potential declines in growth and employment. So this is where you boleh support by using ADAS diagrams, right? Causing a foreign currency, according to foreign currency aspect. Okay, now the fourth one. Okay, this is where it tells you the magnitude of a fall in export, where you should be able to use it to explain how significant, how bad it is in terms of export prices drop. Also to indicate why is it the export revenue dropped significantly. So those are the figures that you have to give, and also do tell where the paragraph comes from. Paragraph 4. Right? And in July 2015. Okay, so this is referring to if you were to refer to the figure 2013, in 2015 dia jatuh banyak ni, 67%. In Australia, falling oil prices create a downward pressure on economic growth. So this is where you have to make sense. Kita what diagram should we use to relate this one? Jawapan dia senang kan, which is
ASAD.
yes, ASAD. So ASAD curve mana yang bergerak?
Demand.
Demand.
AD. Alright. And the main culprit dia? Komponen mana yang affected?
Net export.
Okay, then export. Thank you. So Australian real gross domestic drop grew by 2% in 2015. So you have to bear the GDP dia drop Australian real gross domestic product grew 2% in 2015, down to 2000 from 2005. So it means that we have 0.5% drops from 2014 to 2015. So you have to bear in mind, the only drop is 0.5%, is that right? Nampak kecil kan? But the 0.5%, it could be in terms of the whole figure is talking about trillions or billions. So 0.5% of a trillions is billions. So it's a big number. Okay, but percentage-wise, it does look a very minimal, sikit sangat. But in reality, in number-wise, in thousands or in billions, such a big number. Okay, some economists noted that falling commodity prices reduced Sweden export revenue by 2% of GDP in 2015. Okay. Then a expanding group of Australian-based economists argue that the central bank should further cut the interest rate. So now we come up with the policies. Okay. Because of global economic uncertainty. So why is it they ask for the falling interest rate? Mana tahu interest? Oh, before that, kita kena identify. Whenever we have interest rate, apa yang kita kena ingat in our mind?
Investment.
In investment. Before that, dia punya interest rate, dia punya theory base, nama theory dia apa?
Policies to the teacher.
Yes, policies apa?
Monetary policy.
Policies. Lepas tu dia kata dia nak cut kan? Cut monetary policy kita panggil apa?
Expansionary.
Okay, expansionary or loose monetary policies. Semua tu dalam apa? Demand side policies. So you should be able to indicate cut interest rate, expansionary or loose monetary policy, and then bentuk adalah demand side policy. Then so that's because for our new syllabus, we bound to have a long essay. Cuma kita tak tahu topik apa yang keluar dalam long essay. So you should be able to pick up the terminology as much as possible. Okay, so we do have uncertainty. So talking about, okay, so global uncertainty, talking about the economy is having low recessions, for example, having a recessions. Are we having a low economic growth? So you could have a question, is either 4 marks or question or a bigger ones, asking you about how important are the impacts of having a cut in interest rate as a diagram, simple diagrams, or you could having as a long essays. Okay, and falling commodity prices, okay, and weak consumer demands and persistent weakness in a non-mining. So give you the reasons where weak consumer demand will mean C, consumption is low. Okay, weakness is non-mining, it means that other services, other industry are not doing well so much. And so it's the reason. So it tells you everything is down, but it tells you other sectors as well. So in your AC, kena masuk all those sectors as well. Because there has been popular destination. So in the end, it do tells that tourism has dropped. Right? So if you have a balance of payment question, they give us in terms of components of current accounts. And so in current account, we do have the balance of trade, balance of services, incomes, and do we have the net transfer semua tu. So they could have. So over here, even though we have a very short paragraph, short text, but it, the short text integrates so many things in our essay, so many possible answers. So let's try to answer your questions. Okay, so define the term depreciations indicated in bold and text. Okay, so what we need to do is that, so kita buat as a guided, take out a piece of paper, you write as we go along. So this is like doing exercise dengan pre-exams, right? Okay, so you all semua ada kertas tak? Sebab lepas ni kita kena tulis jawapan. Okay, so the next one will be on current account. What does it mean? Define what is a current account. So teacher bagi 3 minit cukup tak untuk define dua ni? Boleh kan? Okay. So in a 3 minutes time buat sekarang. Okay, have we done? Christina, tolong baca your jawapan on the depreciations.
The first one, depreciation means a decrease in the value of currency in a floated exchange rate system.
Okay. Boleh tambah sikit lah in another country currency lah. Okay. Tapi in a floating exchange system is I think is good enough. Okay. So as long as we're talking about a lower currency, right? In foreign in exchange rate market lah, in floating. Okay, let's move into a current account. So let's go by Arham.
Current account modification is the specific nation transaction with other country in terms of their net trade in goods and services.
That's in goods and services. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, let's move on into the B. Using exchange rate diagrams, explain slowing growth in China may have caused a depreciation of the Australian dollar. So this is a very straightforward question where they ask you on slowing growth in China. So how we translate slowing growth in China?
Low demand for areas.
Low demand.
Yes, low demand for the currency. So in our diagram, so we are supposed to do a correctly labeled diagrams of talking about Australia versus China, right? Price of one US, talking one of Australian dollar in term of a Chinese renminbi, and of quantity of renminbi, and then of course our demand for the currency, demand for Australian currency, supply of supply currency. Okay, and then over here, what happened to which one is moving? The demand curve or the supply curve?
The demand curve. The demand
Yes,
curve move
moving
to the left.
to the left. So we should have the P going down and Q. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the writing part. So this is to make sure that you are not missing any words. So you have to explain slowing down of the China's economy means that they will demand less of for the iron ore. So you have to mention the products. Export iron ore, and because of that, low demand for the export has caused the demand for the currency shift to the left from demand 1 to demand 2. You have to mention the reasons, and do have mentioned the demand curve to the left, and also give names for the label movements. Semua tu kena ada complete. Okay. Okay. Should we stop there or should we add more? Tambah lagi cukup ke untuk 4 markah?
Tambah lagi, followed by fall in value of currency.
Yes, fall in the value of the currency. Okay. So when you say value of the currency, cukup ke?
Cukup.
Should we kena letak P1, P2 ke?
Kena.
Kena teacher.
Kena. Tapi soalan tu tanya pasal depreciation kan? Ada tak you sebut depreciation in your answer?
Yes.
Tak ada kan tadi?
Especially
Kita
with
cakap fall in the value je. So, you have to mention does we have a depreciation in the currency. So, you have to mention currency value fall from P1 to P2 indicating a depreciation in the currency. So, only then you will be able to secure the 4 marks. Okay. Sebab kadang-kadang, so we have a 4 marks, kadang-kadang you miss, you tak explain habis, you talking about fall in currency. Certain mark scheme kadang-kadang dia nak you kata depreciation. Tak ada, you tak dapatlah markah for the depreciation. So you have to indicate that. Do not give any room to examiner tolak markah by not being detailed. Make sure you doing it very detailed. Okay. So, kita dah discuss the answers. So can you guys do that in 3 minutes time? Buat sekarang? Boleh tak? Buat sekarang?
Teacher, can I
Ha.
show you my answer?
Ada?
Can I show you my answer?
Yes, dah siap dah. Boleh? Share.
Teacher nak tanya.
Yes.
Tadi kan teacher cakap demand less for iron ore kan? Kalau saya cakap less export of iron ore to China, less import. I mean
From
China,
China.
import less iron ore.
Okay. Dia tak salah, tetapi kita are looking at Australian perspective tau. Bukan China punya perspektif kan. So kalau China memanglah import, tapi soalan tu pasal Australia. So kena be careful sebab kalau examiner tu perasan dia nampak you import dan dia kata import of Australia, tu jadi macam salah. So kena go by perspective of the questions. It's risky lah Azimah. Risky sebab kalau examiner tu tersalah nampak, tu dia kata salah. Try to be on perspective of soalan tu. Okay, so we do have Haziq, so we do have price of US. Okay, kat sini apa silap dia? Price of Australia tapi tak ada in terms of China. Kan, so this is Australia versus China kan? Haziq, quantity of Australia betul. Okay, so yang tu mungkin dia examiner have room nak tolak markah. Okay, so we have supply, so demand shift to the left. Okay, based on the diagrams above, slowing growth in China will lead to a fall in demand for the Australian exports. Okay, Iron ore thus reducing demand for the dollar. Okay. Perasan tak kat sini? You tak cakap pun dia punya movement from D1 to D2. Tak ada kan? This cause a depreciation. So you tak ada movement from D1 to D2 and then this cause a depreciation. Ada tak cakap from P1 to P2? Okay. So you are giving less detail because less detail you dah jadi banyak. Confirm lah kena tolak satu markah. So, Haziq, tulis besar-besar dapat 3 out of 4. But you have to bear in mind, kita tertinggal sikit je, tak bagi detail sikit je. Azmina nampak ruang untuk dikata this is not a perfect answer. So, less perfect adalah 3. Right? Okay.
Teacher,
Yeah.
untuk price of Australia dollar tu, price of Australia to China ke price of Australia to US?
Price of, kan yang ini kan versus China kan, price of Australia in terms of Chinese renminbi lah kan.
So gunakan
Price of US in China.
Chinese punya currency which is yuan.
Yuan lah.
Yuan. So price of US per China, per yuan, per yuan.
Per yuan. Yes.
Alright. Thank you, teacher.
Okay. In yuan pun boleh juga kan orang kata. Okay, so kita move on to the next questions.
Yeah. Yang graph exchange rate tadi tu, dia price of Australian dollar in yuan ke in US dollar ke boleh mana-mana?
Soalan ni ada in China in yuan sebab dia pasal growth in China. So kena China. Dia tak boleh US in China ni. Kalau you buat US salah then bila salah the whole curve tu salah, the whole diagram tu dah jadi salah. So bukan tolak 1, tolak 2 terus. Sebab dia
kan yang macam Dina tanya tu, kalau dalam artikel yang passage tu dekat tu, dia cakap depreciation against US dollar. Tapi still kita kena buat dalam yuan lah.
Sebab kat sini adalah depreciation in sebab kat sini adalah China versus Australia. So kena yuan. Sebab yang ini adalah kalau exchange rate kan between two countries kan. Ini adalah country China. So tak boleh Australia. Tak boleh US. Okay, any other questions? Okay kan? Okay, let's move on to question C. Using demand and supply diagram, explain why double effect of slowing growth in China and higher level of productions in Australia has driven the price of iron ore lower. So this is demand supply diagrams. And higher. So kat sini which one? Which curve is moving? Demand or supply?
Dua-dua.
Ya, dua-dua. Okay. To be smart, you buat demand dia elastik ke inelastik?
Inelastik.
Ya, sebab primary commodity adalah inelastic. So you should have a slightly steeper. Jangan jadi normal. Jadi unit elastic, jangan jadi elastic steeper sikit. Okay. Sebab kalau you buat steeper, you akan tunjukkan changes in currency tu akan lebih tinggi. Okay. So this is how the double effect. So dia tak kisah you buat order yang mana, sama ada talking about China China punya dulu atau you buat production dulu. Doesn't matter. Okay. So for slowing growth in China, they akan affect demand or supply?
Demand.
Demand moving to
To the left.
to the left. Okay. Higher as a productions shift supply curve, is it right? To the left,
To the right. Right.
to the right. Okay. So anyone would like to share your answers? Teacher tengok terus. Siapa yang dah siap lah? Haziq boleh juga, kalau Haziq ke orang lain pun boleh juga.
Can I, teacher?
Boleh. Teacher tak perlu stop sharing kan?
Tak payah.
Ya kan? Okay, so we have a demand. Kita tengok label Price of iron ore betul, quantity of iron ore, letak iron ore tak ada. So demand and supplies. Okay, the double slow growth in China is represented by a further shift. Okay, the double tu adalah referring to production dengan China. So kalau you nak cakap slow growth, China tak ada double lah. Right?
Okay.
Okay, the slow growth in China is represented by further shift. Okay, maybe you can ubah sikit. A slow growth in China has resulted a reduced demand for iron ore. Thence, it being illustrated by a fall in, a shift to the left of the demand curve. Okay, illustrated by a leftward movements of a demand curve. Kena bagi directions from D to D1.
Demand from
D to D1. Okay. Kita dah settle yang tu kan. Okay. Then whereas the increased level of productions will shift the supply curve to the right. Okay, betul The new equilibriums of D1 and S1s are lowered. Okay. Then you might say that kita ambil dua-dua serentak ke kita ambil sets we start with the demand has fallen, come to a new equilibrium, but at the same time we having a movement of the supply curve to the right. So in the end, making the final equilibriums.
tulis terus final equilibrium teacher.
Teacher.
Ataupun you talking about latest lah. Final macam kelakar bunyi dia kan. The latest equilibriums is the intersections of S2, S1 and S1 and D1. So kan? We talking about the latest demand curve and the latest supply curve.
Teacher nak tanya?
Ya? Yeah?
Teacher, kalau contoh soalan macam ni, tak payah buat dua graf
Yang ini kena sekali sebab dia serentak.
So nanti price of iron ore tu dalam yuan ke dalam Australian dollar?
Price yang ini adalah demand supply biasa of iron ore, bukan tu. Kan sebab dia demand supply diagram, bukan exchange rates.
Okay, teacher.
Okay.
Teacher.
Ya, siapa yang cakap tu? Azimah ke Husna tadi?
Tanya dulu nak.
Okay. Teacher, maksudnya kalau dia serentak, kita tak payah cerita macam intermediate dia. Maksudnya kalau contoh, tak, saya dah cakap tadi. Dia takkan macam satu shift dulu, lepas tu baru ni shift. Ni dua-dua shift terus kita cakap.
Sebab kalau real life mana boleh dua-dua berlaku shift whatsoever. Kan dia satu-satu dulu. Mesti ada, it could be beza by second ke, beza by months kot. So that's why kita ambil satu-satu dululah. So that's why you kena indicate the new equilibrium is the intersection of SD1 and S1. Sebab kita consider two major events that happens. That's why dia kata double kan tadi. Double impact tu kan. Double slow. Okay, kita buang dia double slow sebab dia bukan double slow growth je. Buang dia double. Yang ayat your first hand tu. Double tu buang Double sebab dia serentak.
Teacher.
Ya.
Dia tanya terima kasih.
Kalau buat 3 intersection, salah juga.
Tak. Maksudnya you buat yang sebelum tu and then kita buat yang D1 tu, is it right? Lepas tu buat yang latest. Sama je. Means that you tunjukkan, katakan demand shift to the left, then you buat a new equilibrium P, kita dengan P1 dan kita dengan P2, is it right? Then after that supply shift to the left, so jadi P3, boleh? Tapi in the end sama je point dia. Sepatutnya lah. Sepatutnya. Tapi kalau you tak tunjukkan equilibrium, the latest equilibrium is yang latest curve, D1 DS tu salah Okay, is it all? Anything else? Okay ke? So that kita boleh move on to the next question.
Okay, teacher.
Okay, teacher.
Kita ada 5 minit je. Next question senang tak?
Next question tak ada diagram. Just discuss.
Sebab kalau senang kita boleh proceed. Kalau susah kita macam tu. Okay, next soalan susah Explain how depreciation.
Dia ada diagram. Dia just discuss je, teacher.
Okay. Explain how depreciation in Australian dollar lead to a worsening of Australian current balance. Ni explain je kan?
Yes.
Kalau kita nak tembak, tak apalah, kita tolong Azizah, your new classmate tolong Talent Hayat sebab dah masuk untuk explain how depreciation the Australian dollar lead to worsening of current account balance. So this is where you can referring to exports and imports of goods over here, right? And then this is where you've been seeing the depreciation of Australian dollar has lead to a lower export revenue. Okay, then to satu point. Then another point talking about a lower export revenue, which is lower than import expenditure, has lead to a deficit in a current account. And if the current account already in deficits, these situations will make it a bigger deficit or lead to a worsening of the current account balance. So pasal kat sini dia kata worsening, so means the economy dah, current account tu dah bad dah, jadi negatif dah, is right, the deficit. Tapi depreciation make the export getting even much lower. So the situation is getting worse. Okay, so the first thing you can sebab the 4 marks, the first one talking about depreciation, how does it relate to export revenue? Lower, much lower. And then talking about current account is export versus import. Over here export is getting much lower, and then before indicating that the net figure your current account will be coming even a bigger deficits or worsenings of the deficit. So you explain macam tu, 2 kali explain. Okay, so any questions? Sebab next class we going to, next class lagi penting kan. So we have another 4 and 4, especially yang 15 yang ini. So for next class we discuss question E, F and G. Is it okay?
Okay, teacher, boleh?
Boleh. Okay, so we end our class today, and hopefully we continue tomorrow early in the morning. Okay. Cuma bear with me lah kalau teacher terlambat sikit, so dalam 85 minit So sebab teacher kena pergi college kan. Okay. So I see you
Right,
again
teacher.
tomorrow then. Okay, bye-bye semua. Assalamualaikum.
Teacher.
Thank you, teacher.
Teacher.
Thank you,
Okay,
teacher.
bye.
Terima kasih, teacher.